Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful. When the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. Well, sorry, News Squawk is in my ear, like really yapping right now, but we have retail sales coming up here in a few minutes. Pretty big number. Bank of America, who is really good at predicting this, has been for years. We've been following this for a long time. Tends to be pretty good at predicting retail sales, and they think that it's going to be a beat this time. So I am preparing myself for another run on the rates. And by the way, we are up a little bit overnight. Let's come over to the charts here. We are now at 4.25%. And you can see yesterday, so we were getting some selling off. That was mostly going into like a Bank of England action. And after that, you know, they kind of reverted back up. But they weren't able to hold the reversal and eventually ended the session back down, you know, more towards the lows. And then in the overnight session, we have moved lower. So rates continue to be under pressure. Here we got the S&P 500 doing okay yesterday, but having a bit of a tumble in the overnight action. Oil also getting hammered. So there's some pretty nasty numbers coming out of China, if I recall correctly. Gold and silver getting hammered. Copper getting hammered. In fact, China was actually like selling dollars and buying yuan. So then you can see that over here in the dollar. A little bit of selling in the dollar. Nothing too crazy though. And Bitcoin still just kind of going sideways. So that's basically where we're at. Again, the big thing coming up is retail sales. US retail sales spot 4%. And let's see, our core retail sales are also looking for a spot 4%. So that's the number. So I probably won't be able to trade like this immediately, but because the other thing is later today we've got some Fed speak, right? Oh, well, it's actually not until much later. So maybe this will be pretty much the main driver for our session, because Kashkari doesn't speak until basically we're done. Oh, Strats, welcome back. Oh, let's see here. We got a whole minute, huh? Oh, geez. We have to talk about Donald Trump getting indicted again, do we? Do we have to talk about that? Why do I keep... Oh, I'm not intending to ignore you. Did you post some more stuff? You know, I'm kind of like, you know, I'll check in every couple of hours and, you know, because when it's, especially in the evening, like I don't look at it in the evening. Spend the time with the family. I'll have to come back and look at it. After this, let's see what they do first. Okay, well, New York Fed manufacturing was negative 19. Oh, yeah, that's not good. Okay, this is an interesting number. So retail sales, core retail sales month over month 1% versus a spot 4%, but New York Fed manufacturing negative 19. So we get another very in stagflationary, seemingly stagflationary number. The micros actually were pretty liquid through that. Okay, I had to scratch that one. Yeah, I didn't quite get the same kind of an opportunity that I had gotten last Friday in the micros, because the micros kept with it pretty closely. They are looking like they want to push a little bit further, but the book is looking pretty constrained at the problem. What's happening with the 6E? Oh man, yeah, their 6E is getting crushed, right? Well, okay, so I can explain this though. So this is a scenario that like 3 minutes ago I didn't really lay out in very much detail, but that I was concerned about, which was I remember I said Bank of America says that the retail sales number is going to be better than expected. So I'm expecting another run on the rates, and that's exactly what you're seeing. So earlier in the day, or in the overnight session, excuse me, hold on. Let me take a drink. Let me collect myself here for a second. I'm a little excited. Okay. In the overnight session, there was data out of China, and it didn't look good. So China continues to struggle. Europe is kind of struggling. Okay. Japan, well, Japan is having problems because of their currency and the interest rates and everything else like that. And so you're kind of getting this situation where the United States is doing quite a bit better than the rest of the world in this situation. It's kind of interesting. It's like we've exported our inflation all around the world, and now everybody's screwed, and then we get all of the money. It's pretty devious how it's playing out, but that's what's happening. And so the interest rates now, because retail sales was good, interest rates are going up, and so what's happening? All of that money is coming out of Europe and these other places and coming over to the United States to buy our treasuries where we have a better yield. Because basically the economy continues to run hotter than anticipated. There's tons of soft data that kind of looks bad, and then you get to things like retail sales, and then it's like it continues to be better than anticipated. And what's happening, one of the things that's happening that's I think really, really interesting, and we kind of discussed yesterday, was that consumers still have credit left. Everybody's making a big deal over, how much credit, at least I see it on Zero Hedge all the time. Every time that I see an analyst and they say, consumers are tapped out, sort of a thing, I'm immediately like, well, I don't think you know what you're talking about. Because anybody that knows what they're talking about would point out that it's a much more nuanced thing than that. Debt as a percentage of discretionary income is actually historically low. So back to levels that it was before 2020, and before 2020 we were like historically low. Okay, so retail consumers are not topped out. They're able to continue buying on credit. And that's kind of what's happening. There's one group of people that their earnings did keep up with inflation, and then there's this other group of people that it didn't, and they're putting it on credit, right? And they still have room. They still have room to go. But it's kind of interesting because we did see last month like some signs of people kind of like cutting back on spending. When I look at like my reseller market, people are definitely cutting back on spending. And so what I think is happening is there's a bifurcation in the market. Basically, there's one group of people that have the ability to negotiate a better wage, move over to a different company and get a raise, what have you. And then there's this other group of people that are more working class people, and they don't really have a whole lot of leverage. The wage continues to be what it was, and they don't pay them more, right? And so those people are getting tapped out, and the rest, the people that were able to negotiate a better wage, and then even if they're on top of it, because if you're like me, you had a house and you were able to do that, right? Now you have a ton of discretionary income, and they're making up for it for everybody else. So yeah. The end result is people want to bring their money over into the United States. And yeah, the euro got pretty hammered there, didn't it? Now this pullback here is pretty deep. So I'm happy that there was an opportunity there. Maybe I'm okay with the way that I played that out. So do you think that they're going to make it all the way back? I don't know. Now the split side of this, all of this, is New York Fed manufacturing. They were expecting a reading of -1, and they got a reading of -19. So, while all this is going on, and the economy seems to be running on consumer spending and supported by consumers' relatively strong balance sheet, I guess you could say. Manufacturing continues to just get destroyed in this country. And having the dollar going up over 103 now today does not help that, by the way. So that's where this comes into the kind of like stagflationary numbers here, where it kind of seems like things are going a little bit too well, that rates are going to have to go even higher. I wonder. Okay, so they did pull back. That was their first pullback there. Looking at this, I'm a little surprised at how far they come back in like micro terms, for instance. Is there any other DOM software you can use instead of Jigsaw? Okay, so if you're looking for cheaper software, then I would look at what software your broker potentially has. So for instance, if you go over to Iron Beam Capital, they have a platform that's web-based, but it gets the job done, and there's a lot of nice things about it. I'm not a fan of web-based per se, but it has its pluses and minuses. For me, it's not ideal, let's just say. There's also a bunch of platforms that use, or a bunch of brokers that have something called Quant Tower, and they kind of like rebrand it for themselves. And that you'll usually get for free, right? Because you can't go, usually the alternative to Jigsaw is Sierra charts. But Sierra charts, you pay quite a bit for the full feature set per month too. So if you're really trying to keep your costs low, Quant Tower or Iron Beam are probably your best choices there. Oh, if you're using NinjaTrader brokerage, so are you renting out NinjaTrader, or are you just? I mean, NinjaTrader does have a DOM. It's missing some key features, but at the very least, I would be executing on their DOM. I don't get how people enter orders on the charts and things like that. I would be clicking on a DOM either way, but let me think here. I think that there's some third-party add-ons, but you'd have to pay for those, and those are like $500. So I think that if you've gone over to NinjaTrader, that you should just try and make it work with NinjaTrader. And there are some key things that I think you're kind of missing in NinjaTrader's DOM, particularly like seeing how much gets taken out at a time. And so one way that you may try to deal with that, okay, so that's why I was asking that question. Trade of 8 is pretty friendly. Yeah, Trade of 8 you could do it as well. No, I was going to ask, do you have a full license? Like, because if you have the full license and you've got like the full order flow thing, then okay, I'm not live yet. I'm considering NinjaTrader brokerages. They're only ones who have decent software in EU, for instance. AMP Global. Wait, AMP doesn't support CQG or yes, they do. What are you talking about? Those are like your only choices at AMP. Unless they've like changed something big time since I've been there. Since I was using them. What I mean. Didn't work for them. Oh, you can't open an account with them in the EU? Do they no longer have well, they used to have two FCMs. There was Philips, and what's the other one? And the other one was kind of more Eurocentric. Yeah, with AMP you can get Quant Tower for free. And that's probably the way that I would go. Yes, you can open the account with AMP. Yeah, so I wonder what it was that Ostrat saw that makes him think that he can't open an account there in the EU. Can't even change the country in the application? I'm pretty sure you can though, because these guys that are telling you this are from the EU. because we're so early in the morning, most of my audience ends up being Euro. See, Kulid says I can trade everything. And you're with AMP in the EU, right? And what's the name of the FCM you have to pick? I think you can get away with doing Philips in the EU, but you usually go for the other one. It's like game. I don't know. Maybe if I pull up AMP. Sign up, maybe. See, the problem is I've had a previous account with them, so it'll probably like Yeah. I wouldn't be able to get to the screens that you need to see. Okay, so I use Edge Clear. I guess my brain is still getting going because I have to like search for names of things and stuff, huh? Look at that, they're going higher. So the thing is, I'm not sure is this a return to even and then they continue selling it again? Or do they think that New York Fed manufacturing number is really important? Those import prices are important, stuff like that. So I was thinking, my plan originally was, okay, let them pull back and maybe I can get a good spot to go for it again. Now I'm looking at it and I'm not so confident. Maybe I'm psyching myself out, but I don't feel so confident in the short side anymore. And the big thing holding me back is that New York Fed manufacturing number was just so bad. Like I see this as like oh yeah, retail sales being good, that's bad because that means the Federal Reserve has to continue to be aggressive and everything. But it kind of seems to me like they wouldn't be able to be aggressive for very long, you know? That buying might be the like, well, no, that doesn't make sense. That maybe that buying is like the last hurrah, but I'm not so sold on there's actually going to be a recession thing either. At the moment I'm a little unsure on whether that's going to come to pass too. I live in the UK, but I have Lithuanians. So I don't think that matters. I think the main thing that matters is where you're trading from. Yeah, it's not until you get into the more southern Islamic countries that you start to get like crazy restrictions. Okay, now that they're touching highs of the session, I'm definitely like, I don't think I want to touch that one. Right? Not this. We want to talk about this. Lucas. Okay, what do you think about trading cumulative delta divergences? Don't do it. Okay, so let me. This is one of my favorite subjects. I'm so glad you asked this question. So, oh my gosh, hold on a second though. I don't have my pen turned on. Let me turn on my pen. Come on, there we go. Okay, can we see this okay? Maybe we can, let's minimize one of these. Yellow? Yellow's good, okay. So, stock's going up. Cumulative delta is going up, okay? So what does that mean? That means that market orders are coming into the market. They are eating through the offer liquidity that's out there, and they are driving price. Okay. When we see this, that's a good sign because those tend to continue. Okay. There is a large meta order out there. They're trading it in legs. It's going to take them a long time to execute it. And so those are our best trades because we can get in and we can try and ride it for all it's worth. Right. And there's plenty of opportunity for me to get in at any spot. Okay. When they're in line with each other. Okay. Now, but sometimes what you'll see is it's going up, but cumulative delta is flat. Well, what's with that? Well, it could be a couple of different things, right? One thing could be that there's a correlated asset over here that's going up, and we're just following the correlated asset, even though traders aren't really trading it as such. The market makers are just adjusting their bids and offers, right? But it could also be that we're kind of in a little bit of a mixed market, you know? And then the cumulative delta is flat or whatever the deal is, right? So in this situation, what is this? This is, there is not a large meta order in the market, essentially. So I don't want to trade in this situation. If there's not a large meta order that's going to continue pushing price and it's just like market makers screwing around with each other, I don't want to be involved in that situation. And that's what you're likely to be seeing when there's these big divergences between price and cumulative delta. So if there's a divergence and I can't explain it, that is a reason to stay out of the market. Yes, of course, there is, when there is a divergence, one side is going to move eventually. But the thing is you don't know if it's that the cumulative delta is going to come up or if the price is going to come down. And so it's kind of a crapshoot. I've actually done, early on in my days, I did a lot of study over these situations, and everything that I tried in the backtesting kind of came out to meh. But the one thing that I've done in the backtesting more recently that I've shown is pretty successful is when you're getting a trend in price and you're getting a trend in cumulative delta, and the two of these things are closely correlated to each other, then you get good trades. So I would prefer to trade when price and cumulative delta are correlated, not when they're diverging. And this is a common strategy, you know, thing that retail traders do that I recommend against. Most likely something else you put in your application, ask AMP. Yeah, that's weird. You should be able to trade with AMP. And yes, I would totally talk to the broker. You know, like having a good relationship with the broker is important. Okay, that came back a little bit. So I'm still terrified here. Let's come over to Zero Hedge and read this. Prepare for a big beat was a message from Bank of America's sage-like forecasters for this morning's retail sales print, and sure enough, they were right as July retail sales rose 0.7% month over month, beating the 0.4% jump expected, the best monthly jump since January. Under the hood, everything was green except for motor vehicles and parts dealers, which is negative spot 3. Furniture and home furnishings, negative 1.8%. Okay, so that's interesting because I've been saying, you know, it seems like there's a problem in the secondary market because I've been putting stuff up for sale and like nobody's interested in the way that they used to be. But maybe it's just that area of the market in particular, furniture and home furnishings. Okay, electronics and appliance stores, negative 1.3%. Non-store retailers soared, with some suggesting this was Amazon's Prime Day. On a year-over-year basis, headline and core retail sales accelerated. Finally, we note that the control group, which is used in the GDP calculation, soared more than 1% month over month, more than double the expected 0.4% month over month rise. One last thing, all of this data is completely divergent from the collapse in retail sales seen by Redbook data. Yes. We wonder who's right. Bear in mind that all of these numbers are nominal. And you can see there retail sales going higher, but the Redbook not. And that's what I was talking about, where I was like, it seems like in the month of June and July that like a lot of people just like hit a wall and like pulled back on spending big time. But I missed your message again. Oh, I was in Best Buy yesterday and it was totally empty. Hold on a second. Couple things going on here. Let's see here. So first of all, somebody in Discord asked me for the for this strategy document. Where do I put that? I think it's in documents, but I can't. Where did I put it? It's on my machine somewhere, but I can't remember where I put it. I guess I'll just re-export it. Oh, of course. Of course. I see. Let's see here. Twitter. There we go. Okay. From my backtesting, trading divergence, well, but how much did you backtest? so the back I should mention, sorry, and I should have said this when I brought this up, but the backtesting on order flow based stuff is kind of sketchy because we don't get enough data going far back enough to really reach a real conclusion. I can go back like 1 or 2 years. So, my most recent back tests going back 2 years on trading when cumulative deltas are showing strong correlation, it was pretty good. It was one of the better strategies I've tested. But back in the day when I was doing the divergences, it didn't work. Now, depending on the time frame that you're doing it in, like depending on, the data set that you're using, you might find it to be profitable. Like there are periods of time where it's profitable, but overall net, I do not find it to be a reliable trade. And particularly to come in and say, like, there's a divergence, assume that price is going to win, that it doesn't work that way. So From my backtesting, trading delta, HH, low divergences. Well, so yeah, but would you agree that markets change year in, year out? So does the OF. So if you test 5 years back, you're testing the market that is no more. Well, that's true. But if I'm going back and I'm testing a market that is no more and it doesn't work, then doesn't that mean that, you know, it's not something that is really based on like market microstructure and is reliable, right? Because you can certainly come in and have a technical analysis strategy that over the year works. But the question is, how do you know when it's going to start working and stop working and what you're going to switch to, right? He leaves, I guess. You can just base it on the performance and, you know, invest your money in the ones that are working with some sort of a machine learning system. But I say that when you get to that point, really what you're doing is you're just trading noise, right? And this goes back to this thing where it's like, you know, once a strategy becomes semi-popular, then it starts losing money, right? I might not be getting all of your messages here. You have some sort of, yes, if you're posting a link, YouTube automatically removes them off, even though I have the settings set so that you should be able to do it. If you're posting a link, we're not seeing it. I feel we are losing value because we cannot post GIFs. Okay, so going back to what Kulud was saying earlier, though, that he likes this pullback in ZN, another opportunity for shorts. Again, I definitely looked at this as okay, I missed the initial, you know, I wasn't able to really trade the initial move. It just didn't work out that way. Let's see what kind of a pullback we can get, and then maybe we can go short. And now it's gone up quite a bit more than I expected, and I am really scared about trying to fight this and going short at the moment. It seems to me that it's more complicated than I initially realized. Like, when I look at the cumulative delta in the treasuries, okay, so in the 30-year, they're down, but only slightly. In the 10-year, they're kind of break even. And in ZN, they actually bought through all of this. So the flows, in other words, are not in line with the scenario that I had laid out in my head, which was that rates would just continue to get, you know, what is not crushed, but, you know, throttled, I guess. The rates would just continue to throttle through the session. That's not what's happening at all. I'm not quite sure I understand what's going on. The S&P 500 seems to have kind of ignored the news, didn't really react too strongly. There was a huge currency movement, but it kind of all came back. I'm wondering if all of the things that happened overnight with the Chinese yuan and all of that are kind of suppressing what this move would otherwise normally do. But either way, I am kind of at the moment I'm in the I have no trade mode. yeah, trying to wrap my head around what I've been learning and unlearning. I think the most devastating thing that happens to retail traders is that almost all of the content that you consume when you first start trying to get into trading is based around technical analysis, that, trying to read higher highs and higher lows and all of that sort of stuff, and something that's just not really very effective. And so your brain, because man, you've got to consider the systems that you make, right? There are living systems all around us, and this is kind of one of the things that people in modern society don't think about enough. That we're kind of naive. We want to think of everything in terms of like really simple mathematical systems that are really easy to put into code and all of that. Well, listen, if every system was so logical like that, programmers wouldn't have as much opportunity as we do. Because the whole thing is that, like, when you have business rules, for instance, they never go down into what you want in code very well. That's just the thing. And it's, there's reasons why that is. There's like history behind it. Somebody made this decision back a long time ago, and then everybody built on top of that decision, and now maybe it's not the most optimal decision, but that stuff's already there. It's a living thing. It's like literally a living system to some extent, right? And you do that every day with your brain. The things that you consume, the things that you learn, you're taking those things and, you're incorporating those into your neural network. And so when you sit there every day and look at charts, your brain is configuring itself to read charts, right? And that's kind of a problem if the thing that is configuring itself for isn't really very effective. I'm not saying that you can't make money from charts, but it's not really very effective because the markets are very statistically efficient, right? Meanwhile, there's something that your brain is actually really quite good at, and that the robots aren't really very good at, which is just understanding, really large amounts of pieces of information and then being able to make a conclusion off of that, a single conclusion. Your brain is really, really good at that. And there's a lot of opportunity for you to build up that skill in your, build that configuration in your mind. And retail traders don't do it. And, that holds you back, because then once you kind of learn what the market is, you have to start over. Well, 26 gave me a good risk reward. I cannot not take a trade. I can. Why can you not take a trade? Well, I mean, so far 26 is okay. There was a little bit of selling there, so. I'm too weirded out by how this is moving. There's something else going on, and I suspect it has to do with currency intervention. Like, the China was in there intervening. I think the Japanese yen may be in there intervening. Like, this is a short squeeze. So if it's a short squeeze, the last thing I want to do is, oh geez, oof. That busted through pretty hard. How much does the advanced Sierra package? I think it's more like 45. So where do you see price in the near future? If I had to take a trade right now, I would be going long in ZN. I mean, I'm not going to stand in front of one of those, right? I'm assuming that you immediately stopped out, yeah. Because that was a pretty wild push. Now there's a big old iceberg at 28.5. I'm really I may be like wildly off base I may be wildly off base, but I really think that there could be some currency intervention in here. These are definitely not normal flows. I agree, Mr. Bond. This is a short squeeze. I mean, Kulud was looking at 26, and you know there was some iceberging there, but look at how much volume has traded above that. We're at 12,000 at 28.5. We're at 10,000 at 29.5. That is just insane amounts of volume here. I really think that this is a short squeeze. I like. Did you see how I'm struggling here? Because I can see something happening and I think I know what it is, but I can't prove it, right? But Chinese state-owned banks were seen selling US dollars to buy yuan, right? And then the Japanese yen was also like just, you know, got pretty crushed after that news and got to 145, which is a place that the Japanese have defended before. So I really think that this was currency intervention. There's no way that I would have predicted that outcome, but now that we're seeing it, I think it makes sense. And so then the question is, okay, so if it was a currency intervention, how far does this go? There's no way for me to know, unfortunately. So we didn't quite beat the overnight high, though. So that's the first thing, is that the next key spot above us would be 110 evens, right? Looks like a big risk. Well, I don't know about that one because the S&P 500 didn't really move that much, right? Like let's come back. Let me show you my charts over here, okay? Treasuries moved, okay? Japanese yen moved. Gold moved. Wheat is kind of moving, but it doesn't look like anything too significant, right? But look at the S&P 500. Here's the move in the S&P 500. Let me clear things. Here's the move in the S&P 500. It's just like a little blip. So if it was a risk off, I would be expecting to see the equities selling off and the treasuries buying. So I don't think it's a risk off move. And that brings me back to, oh my gosh, am I having a little bit of graphic problems over here? There we go. I think we're okay. So yeah, that leads me back to, I think that currency intervention is the best explanation. Yeah, this is true. ES is not open yet. For all we know, they're going to open up and just totally sell off hardcore. Either way, I made the right decision not trying to fight it. It's gone so far right now, I don't think that I can try and jump on it. So I'm just going to kind of let them chill out. you know, because there is a possibility that this currency intervention just continues to go and go and go and go, right? Also, another thing, look at how excessively the dollar's moved here. So let's see if they get below yesterday's lows in the dollar, below 102 point, let's say 102.6. Let's say 102.6. But it really strongly looks to me like currency intervention. CRS 46 indeed, still better than the 59 you would pay for Flow Plus on Ninja Trader. Right. That's why one needs a wiggle room. Well, that's a lot more. That's more wiggle room than I'm willing to play with in this situation. Anyways, strats. So that's the thing is like, if you do Jigsaw or Sierra charts, like there's a monthly charge. If you do Jigsaw, then on top of that, you also have to pay $500 up front for the software license, right? But if you go over to like Quant Tower or AMP, so if you're having trouble with, sorry, not AMP, Iron Beam. So if you haven't tried Iron Beam, you maybe want to try Iron Beam, okay? Then you get the platform for free. Anyways, so there was something else that we were going to talk about. The Lucas. I don't know if Lucas is still there though. I did kind of think that he was going to come in and talk about that today. So have you guys been following this? So there's a really popular YouTube channel called Linus Tech Tips, which has basically become the largest tech YouTuber out there, and he's built like a real content factory over there with lots of employees and stuff. Look at that, back to 110. Sheesh, and it's still going too. There is no way for me to know how far this is going to go, but this is insane. Oh. This is causing me like real pain because I think that this is currency intervention. You don't want to be fading currency intervention, right? Because there is no telling how far they're going to push this. And this is an insane move. This is like really an insane move. This has already been, what is it, 80 to 60? It's already been 8 basis points. Yeah, where's the guy that said ZN is so slow? dude, it's 8 basis points in like an hour. That's nuts. Right? Like we've had days where we've moved 10 basis points, but you know, it was kind of like the overall move for the day. Doing that in a few hours, this is absolutely foreign currency intervention. I'm almost certain of it now at this point. I'm almost certain of it at this point. And I'll say on top of that I think it's the Japanese. I think that the Japanese stepped in there because, if I can show you here on the chart. So I have an indicator called inverse that shows you what it is. Okay, because the Forex people always talk the opposite of what the 6J is. Okay, 145 is a place that the Japanese have stepped into before. Okay. So it's like right there at the even number, and then it bounces off hard. That is almost certain. And not only that, but their top currency guy over in Japan was talking today, earlier in the overnight session, that, you know, like, we'll do what has to be done to prevent excessive moves, is what he said. So I really, really think that that was the Japanese central bank just came in and just swept through. Because there was some insane amounts of volume on that. Yeah, I think that a bunch of traders got screwed there, man. You know, talk about markets not being informationally efficient, right? That the Japanese central bank basically just came in there and forced the market to do something opposite to what the fundamentals said. It's literally what happened in there. They're literally manipulating the market. Oh man. Part of me is like, well, I missed like a huge opportunity to make money there. But the other part of me is like, there's no way that I would have seen it as, you know, the Japanese yen steps in. That wasn't part of my scenario at all. And I'm just glad that I was, you know, in tune enough to see that the market was not doing what it was supposed to. Because there will certainly be some days where I was not as on, where I would have tried fighting that, right? Okay, anyways, Linus Tech Tips. So the Linus Tech Tips is a top YouTuber in the tech space. And one of their guys on a video said, you know, well, the reason why they have such good testing is because they do tests that nobody else does and that aren't planned. Because what happens is the manufacturers will optimize their hardware to pass a specific test, right? And they'll like cheat. And so if they're doing something that's different every time, it prevents the manufacturer from cheating, basically, right? You want to go in again, dude, just sit it. Let's just sit on this for a little bit. This is Netso stuff. So there was some other channels that were pretty upset about this because they thought that Linus Tech Tips was throwing shade. I think that those channels should be a little bit concerned because Linus is building like this testing lab and putting tons of money behind it. That'll basically make other YouTube channels where their primary thing is like benchmarking things and stuff obsolete. So like they have a real reason to be afraid. And so they came out and made this video. No, I do want to talk about this. So they went down and they made this video that was like all of the problems with Linus Tech Tips. And it was basically like they went through the history of a couple of results that they've posted in the past that were inaccurate or that there was issues and they had to later issue corrections. Which to me is like, well, that happens and you're kind of constrained sometimes on time, right? Yeah, it was Steve from Gamers Nexus. Yes, it was the guy that posted the video. Thank you. But I would expect you to, when you have time constraints, to make mistakes, especially like as they're still ramping their testing thing up, you know? Okay, so that's the one thing. But then there was this other issue where a company sent Linus Tech Tips, I think it was a water block, a prototype water block for a GPU. And when Linus reviewed it, he wanted to do it against the next generation of hardware. It was built for a 3090 and he put it on a 4090 or something like that. So that was the first problem, was that it wasn't intended to be for that. And so then he said, well, like it doesn't work very well because like it's crazy expensive and the performance benefit that you get out of it isn't very good, which is true, by the way. Even if you put it on the new one, like justifying the cost is pretty hard. Okay. But anyways, they were supposed to send the prototype back and they like forgot to do it. And then apparently they decided to do a charity auction. And so they just took hardware that they had And that was one of the things that they had. So they tried auctioning it. So they auctioned it off when they weren't supposed to. So Linus Tech Tips is saying that it was a mistake. That you know, they didn't. That whoever was doing that charity auction did not know that they were not supposed to auction it off, right? So they are going to pay them back, and they've been working on trying to pay them back, although they haven't paid them back yet. But they were going to pay for the prototype for them to build another to make another prototype, basically, right? So people are really upset about that. Okay. And so on the internet, it's turning into like a mob now. They pay now that they've been called out. There's no way for me to know. It wasn't clear from the details that Linus Tech Tips brought out if they had agreed to pay before all of this or not. That's true. So here's what I've noticed with Linus Tech Tips, like the community around this, okay, is that there is all sorts of unnecessary drama. So like a couple months ago, they put out a backpack, and the backpack is pretty good quality, but there was like this one kind of niche scenario where somebody like really pushed it really hard and was able to damage the backpack or something like that. And so all of a sudden they're saying like, oh, the quality of it isn't very good. And there's this whole thing about what the warranty on the backpack was. And so there's all of this drama. And like the reality of it is that maybe like 2 people that bought the backpack would have this problem and be unhappy with the product. Like the consumers are all fine, but like there was so much drama over it. It went on for weeks on the subreddit. Like people on the subreddit talked about it for weeks. It really feels to me that the people on the Linus Tech Tips subreddit don't like Linus. Which wouldn't surprise me, because it seems to me that Linus is somewhat of a conservative person, and some of the far left people on Reddit, they can just kind of sniff it. They're like, he's not with the woke. Don't like him. I'm telling you that's a thing. Who was the manufacturer? I'd have to go back and look it up. They've been calling him a layman. Well, yeah, because for instance, you know, his employees don't make as much money as he does, right? A lot of his employees are not paid very well at all, actually. Right? Because the kind of the business strategy, I guess you could say, that he's doing is he's trying to expand out as much as possible. And so he's got to get as much out of the employees as possible. And so it's like, yeah, like you can do okay working there, but if you really want to, you know, break into like real wealth, you basically have to quit and go and work somewhere else and try and springboard off. And a lot of employees have done that, right? The people that are left leaning, they don't like that. They don't like that at all, right? So it's always been polarizing over there. Yes. So now that this Gamers Nexus thing comes in, like it's like a real shitstorm. Like people have been so upset, and like Linus came out and addressed it and basically said what I expected him to say, which was like the most that you could say in that situation. Like, well, we think that this is much to do about nothing, and we are paying these guys back though and trying to make that situation right. And then everybody's like, oh, non-apology. See, this is why you just don't even come out and say anything, because it doesn't matter what you say. The mob is not us. These people, let me tell you a story. I got 2 stories to tell you here, okay, about this situation, because I think there are some things that we can learn about this, okay? 2 things we can learn about this. First story. There's way back in the olden days, okay? There was a rich man on a train, and he just had dinner, and he thought it was just the greatest dinner. The server comes, how was your meal? Oh, it was the greatest meal. Give my compliments to the chef. This is the most amazing thing. Well, thank you very much. Would you like dessert? And the man thinks about it for a little bit, and he says, yes, could I have some blueberry pie? Oh, I'm sorry, sir, but we do not carry blueberry pie. Well, the rich man was a little upset by this. He's like, you're such this nice restaurant and everything. Surely you should be able to make something as simple as blueberry pie. So the server goes back to the chef and says, can we make some blueberry pie? And the chef says, well, we don't have any blueberries. So he goes back and tells the rich man, well, we don't have any blueberries, sir. I'm sorry. So we can't make blueberry pie. They're on a train, right? And the rich man, it just blows up. He's like, you realize, how much money I own in the railroad business and all of this business, you better get me some blueberry pie, or like, this is really going to hurt your railroad company. I'll be sure to make sure that your railroad company pays for this, Server is obviously like, can you imagine in a situation like that, a rich man like threatening your whole business over something like this? What do you do? Well, so what happens is the train makes a quick stop at the next town. The guy goes into the town, buys some blueberries, and gets back on the train. And the chef makes the blueberry pie and serves it to the rich man. And the server asks the rich man, okay, how was the blueberry pie? And he says, great, but really I just wanted to be mad at the railroad. That's what it is, guys. That's what happens. Some people just want to be upset. Some people just want to be upset. Doesn't matter what you do. You'll never make them happy. You'll never make them happy. So that's the first thing that I'll say about this. I really don't think that this is the sort of thing that is like as big of a deal as people are making out. Obviously, they made a mistake, right? No, I mean, I'm not ignoring the points that Steve raised. So, like, it seems to me that everything that Steve said in his video was accurate, right? It's just that everybody's acting like this is some huge breach of trust and they're so evil for doing this stuff. And I'm just like, no, it's a testing lab that's still getting up and going, and people make mistakes sometimes. And they're a large company that's growing very fast, and those are the kind of growing pains that you have. And that doesn't mean that somebody's evil or needs to be canceled. It's not this huge big deal that some people are making it like that. And that's the thing, is like the people that are like so invested in, why would you be so invested in something like that? Because I really kind of feel like with some of the things that Steve brought out, he was nitpicking. It was like, well, they did some results and then later on they found something else about the results, and so they put a note in the video description or in the comments about that, and they're really upset about that. It's like, well, so what? I was releasing material. So when you're under time constraints, you put the video out when you have to put the video out, and you just be clear about what you have, which I think that they did. So also, like, but like that's the thing. So you can come in and you can say, okay, right now their test results are, well, okay, sorry. There's another point about this that you have to understand, okay? Some of the places where they're talking about like inaccuracies in the testing is like the machine had 3 megabytes of cache instead of 4 megabytes of cache on the CPU, okay? Like it's really, really niche stuff that 99% of people buying the hardware don't know and don't care about. Like, that's the other thing. No, you put the data that you have, and you tell people how you got that data so that they can make their own conclusions from it. Like you realize that you can never fully guarantee that everything that you have about your data. I think that some people have never been involved in testing and benchmarking things, because it's all of the time that you'll go and you'll back test a strategy or something like that. You think that it works, and then oops, I didn't realize that there are some problems with back testing range charts, and you didn't know that. That will happen to people all the time, and there's no end to the types of mistakes that you can make like that. So Everybody's going to make mistakes like that from time to time. And as long as they're tell the audience, what they've learned, it's okay. So that doesn't mean that they didn't make a mistake, but what I'm saying is people are making a mountain out of a molehill. Right? When it comes to like the data stuff, right? Then there's that other issue where like they made a mistake. So they said that they made a mistake. Okay. It doesn't make Linus evil. Like I'm not going to unsubscribe from the channel over it, right? Because basically what people are saying is because of the stuff on the Gamers Nexus channel, I no longer want to support that channel and I want Linus Tech Tips business to fail. That's basically what they're saying. And I just think that that's nonsense. So let me tell you something. Here's story number 2. And here's why I say this. Okay. Once upon a time, there was this man, rich man again. Maybe I should make all of my stories about rich men. Okay. There's this rich man. Okay. And he wants to find something to collect. And he's thinking about it one day at his friend's house in using his bathroom. And he's like, you know what? I could collect toilet seats. Ridiculous thing. But listen, there's lots of toilet seats out there. Have you seen these toilets in Japan? They're crazy. You can get like bidet toilets and all of these things like that. So this guy starts collecting the toilets, which I know is kind of a weird thing, but that's what he decided to do, and he was quite proud of it. So he wanted to show the whole world. He wanted to show the whole world his toilet collection. So he decided to build a glass house. He built a glass house so that he could show the world these toilets and everybody could walk by and they would see the toilet seats that he had, right? And so he had this grand opening and everything. And, everybody came to see the toilet house. And when they did the grand opening, the entire house just shattered and collapsed to the ground. And the moral of the story is don't stow thrones in glass houses. Do you get it? So what is my point here? I don't think this is as good for Gamers Nexus as everybody thinks. Because now, if Gamers Nexus makes even one teeny tiny mistake, everybody's going to go and jump down their throat on it. Because they're going to make a mistake too. You know what's going to happen, right? This is just saying, like, everybody makes mistakes at some point, right? If we were to go in here and watch on this stream, like every time that I took a trade and it was a loser, or every time I thought that something was going to happen and it didn't turn out that way, right? Like that would be like every stream. Like sometimes I'll say things that are right and sometimes I say things and the whole thing is just like being open about my process and trying to do my best. And that's just the most that you can ask in that kind of a situation, right? Because we're not gods. Like we can't like go through and do the, people act like, well, if you didn't do it exactly perfect, then you're intentionally trying to screw us over and you're immoral. I think that that's silly. Right? They made some mistakes. Okay. I mean, I don't see how I'm ignoring the points that he made. Because I mean, high level, the two main things that he's pointed out was, first, there was some mistakes in testing. And the way that they put them out, like when they found the information, they would like update the video in the video description or something like that, right? And then the other issue was the one where they auctioned off that prototype, which was really quite a stupid situation. I mean, on Linus Tech Tips part, right? Like they really screwed up big time because number one, they didn't send it back when they should have, and then number two, somebody else decided to auction it off. That was That was just like a huge, I can only imagine what things are, all of the drama, like internal drama about this. You auctioned it off? Why would you do that? You don't know like all of this stuff. There's communication problems and, I can totally see it happening. I can totally, It does say something about the way that Linus runs his company, right? Like I think that Linus is probably a little ADHD. There's a little bit of chaos. Like there's a reason why he stepped down and like let somebody that's more of a CEO kind of do the managerial kind of stuff. I think that was a really smart decision on his part, But like it is what it is. I don't know what you want. Because again, the issue is that I see here is that we're acting like Linus has done something immoral and needs to be canceled. Well, I am a Linus fan, but I think that I would be saying this about just about any creator, right? Well, okay, so the dude trashed that company saying this is poop and nobody should buy it anyways. I agree with him on that part. That's the other thing, is that like I understand that you kind of have to understand the product, and you also kind of have to understand Linus's approach to tech, right? The problem is not making a mistake, but rushing, being inaccurate, and not giving... Well, okay, they do rush it, right? Because they have time constraints. Like, I really kind of feel like that the amount of accuracy that people expect for like a 0-day launch is a little crazy. Okay, but anyways, on the product. So there's two things on here, right? Number one is that the product is supposed to be like an insane thing anyways, right? Like the product is supposed to be like doing something way overboard, overkill to get this tiny little performance increase. But if you are the crazy guy that's looking to spend the most money and just have the most performance in the system, then it's the product for you, right? So that's the first thing, right? But Linus, the way that he approaches things, especially when we're talking about a small product, is, he wants a company to come out and put out a product and become like a real company and grow and stuff like that. And he basically knows, but from looking at the thing, that like they might sell some, but this is not a sustainable business. Like, who's actually going to buy this? The performance increase that you get is trivial compared to how much money you're spending. He's totally right. Even for me, I wouldn't pay for that little incremental increase in performance. I just wouldn't. You know what I mean? What time constraints? Okay, so the situations that we're talking about are situations where they've been given something like a GeForce 4060 is the most recent example, right? You get a GeForce 4060 before it's put out on the market. You have a certain amount of time to benchmark it and do your stuff. And then the NDA gets lowered on a certain date, right? So basically nobody's supposed to put out any of their content until a certain day. And then on that certain day, then you put out your video. So you have to finish your video, all your testing and your video before a certain day, right? So there's a time constraint. They only have so much time to do this before they can put it on the market. And you don't want to release it late because then, the period is already over, right? It's a competitive thing, right? So it does turn into this thing, which is like, how good of a test can you do with the time that you've been given, right? So, yes, given where they currently are in developing their company and everything, I would absolutely expect them to have made small errors and inaccuracies and like later find out, oh, well, we had this problem or we had that problem. Like that happens all the time. So that doesn't mean that like it's that the work is okay, right? I mean, there was a mistake in there. It's just, okay, they made the mistake. What should be the consequence for that? Well, the consequence should be this channel is, had this information and this channel had this information, and you make your decision based on how much information they were giving you. Was it relevant to you and in the totality of their content? And if there's a certain piece of information that's missing or inaccurate that is relevant to you, then you might not want to pay too much attention to that particular reviewer for the data, right? But that's not what I'm seeing. What I'm seeing is Linus needs to be canceled, right? Like you don't like unsubscribing from the channel is like a symbolic act, right? So I think you need to step back a little bit, Lucas, because I don't think you're addressing my main point here. Okay. Here's my question. What is it about what they did that makes the entire business worthy of being destroyed? You got what I'm saying? Not saying that they didn't make a mistake. I'm just saying, should the whole business be destroyed because of those mistakes? You're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I don't see where you were getting this idea. It should be destroyed. I don't know, man. You just go and read the Reddit comments, man. Like, these people are out for blood, man. That's just the internet. They shouldn't get away. Well, I can't go point by point through everything that the video said, right? That's what I'm just saying. Yeah, they made mistakes. They should try to do better in the future. I'm not going to unsubscribe because of it. I still enjoy watching their videos. I have 100% confidence that they will continue to get better and better. And at some point, with the way that they've been going, assuming that this whole situation doesn't just like completely destroy the channel, which could happen. Okay, but if they continue to progress the way that they're going, eventually they will get there and they'll have the best test results, period. Right? Yeah, if they rush and make mistakes, it's on them. And like, that's kind of the thing, is like the mistakes that they've made don't really affect me. Right? Like, I can't come on here and say, like, guys, when you're looking for information on new hardware, don't go to Linus Tech Tips because they're inaccurate and they have bad test results, right? Because the mistakes that they have made are generally not going to be relevant to the decisions that we're trying to make on our hardware, right? Like again, a lot of the situations that I was reading about was like whether it was 3 megabytes cache or 4 megabytes cache. Like the performance, differences for us are pretty trivial, right? We care more about kind of the higher level, like, where is the industry going? Was this particular release a good release or a bad release? How is that going to affect prices? Versus like 2 frames in a game, we don't care. right? So I'm not going to unsubscribe. I still love watching their videos. That's it. The other side is like the videos where like they're putting all of that data out and everything. I don't watch those videos anyways, right? So this is what's like. This is how I feel like what's really going on, right? Is I feel like the Gamers Nexus guy is a little bit autistic, and like he's assuming that everybody else should be having the same goals and thinking and everything the same way that he does. And he's not able to put himself into their position and to say, well, okay, but like what's important to Linus Tech Tips is that they put a video out, right? And that they have a good video that's entertaining and has the engagement and continues to grow their channel. And if there's like a minor discrepancy in the data that they have to go back and correct in the comments or something like that, like that's a tiny little sacrifice for them, right? Because it's not really the most important thing for their channel. It is for Gamers Nexus because that's their thing, right? But then the whole thing was like, oh, so Gamers Nexus could come out and be like, well, you know, like they've made this mistake. But no, like he came out for blood. And that's the second point that I'm trying to make, right? Point number one is I do not feel like that this is that Linus has done something worthy of like his business being destroyed. And it really looks to me like a lot of people are trying to destroy the business now, right? Point number two is I think that Gamers Nexus is being a little immature about it. I don't think that the video that they put out was very professional. I don't think that it was good form to go after a competitor like that. And that's why I brought up the stowing throne things. Is like, you're going out for blood, and now you're turning it into a blood feud. You're going to lose that. He's going to lose that battle. Like, Gamers Nexus is not going to come out on top on this. Like, a lot of people might go over and watch the video in the short term. But, like, I don't like watching his videos because he goes on all sorts of crazy rants about really nuanced technical things that I don't care about. And it's just, like, boring. It's, like, 40-minute videos and stuff like that over, you know, one piece of hardware. It's like, what? Yeah, they have better quality on, like, the tech stuff. To be honest, though, if I really wanted that kind of text information stuff, I would rather read it than get a video, right? Man, can you believe that they just pushed higher again? This is nutso. Yeah, that's true. They have a business model where they want views and prioritize video deadlines instead of data accuracy. That's true. 100% true. I'm okay with that. I don't understand why everybody's so upset about that. I really don't understand why everybody's so upset about that. I mean, the funny thing is that for my channel here, my channel is probably a lot more like Gamers Nexus than it is Linus Tech Tips, isn't it? Right? So I can look at my own perspective and it's like, well, okay, so if I do a back test and I put it out, right? The best thing that I can do is give you the best information that I have at that time. And I try to be as transparent about it as possible. That's why I really like to show people the code and like how I did the back test. So that if people have a problem with the back test, they can go and they can duplicate it themselves and then come back and say, well, I found this, or I changed the strategy and I found this, and then we can go from there and we can make follow-up videos or whatever the deal is, right? But you can't expect it to always be 100% accurate. No, it's not like ICT. It's more like Linus Tech Sit. The analog in MySpace would be like what's this bucket? Not even Trader. I can't even remember his name. It's not my best morning, is it? No, not Patrick Wayland. No. Maybe Patrick Wayland. Oh, I had it on the tip of my tongue. Maybe like Meet Kevin, Graham Stephan. I think that the analog in my space to Linus Tech Tips is Graham Stephan. That's, damn. Graham Stephan is the one that is general audience and it's entertaining. That's the best analog in our space, right? And my channel is a little bit more like Gamers Nexus, where I'm trying to get you and teach you about nitty-gritty details, right? And don't necessarily, I'm not willing to modify my content to bring in the greater audience like that. If I can do that, bring in the greater audience while still making that same kind of content, then that's great. But I wouldn't want to ever get into the position where I wasn't able to make that kind, make the channel where I can't really make those kinds of videos anymore because the audience has moved. I would hate that, right? Yeah, well, yes and no. I think I totally understand that why Nexus would be frustrated, but the reason that I think they're frustrated is probably different from what you're thinking about, right? I think that they're frustrated, number one, because they feel like that their results are better right now, and in that one video there was shade thrown, which I kind of felt was like their reaction to that other video was I kind of like, I think, a little like out of order, Like, yeah, of course, the people at Linus Tech Tips are going to think that they're doing the best job and are going to, elevate the things that they think that they're good at that other competitors aren't as good at. Everybody does that, right? But Gamers Nexus turned around and made it a blood feud. Like, it's I think it's, am I wrong? Is it not a blood feud now? Because the video that Gamers Nexus put out could destroy Linus's business. Yeah. You don't think it is a blood feud? Let's I guess we should just wait and see, right? Because here's what I think is going to happen. I think Linus Tech Tips is going to hit back, and it's going to hurt for Gamers Nexus. Eventually, someday. It's one of those things where you just kind of sit and wait. And it's like, as soon as they make a mistake, well, that's true. I think it is kind of more like your everyday drama. Well, okay, but this again is what you just said there is exactly the thing that I'm taking issue with, though, Lucas, right? The same way Linus went out to destroy this water block company, I don't think that Linus's intention was to destroy the water block company. I think that his intention was, well, number one, they made some mistakes with it, right? And number two, I think that his aim is that he wants people to make good products, and he's trying to nudge them in the direction that he thinks is going to result in the best products. And so if a product comes out that it doesn't do what he thinks it should be doing, then he's going to criticize it. Right? So it comes back to people saying that like Linus is doing something evil when that's really not what's going on. Oh, and we got some more news here. Oh yes, NAHB Housing Market Index. I feel like that today is probably not a good day to have this conversation, but I'm actually kind of glad that we do, because I am terrified to touch this now. I am terrified to touch CN right now. Like the amount of pullback that they had and then pushed to new highs is quite extreme. Well, I wouldn't say that he just doesn't care if he gives out bad info, right? Because if that was the case, then they just wouldn't have issued any of the corrections on the information, right? They never sat back and said, well, yes, we're going to have inaccurate information and you should, you know, that's totally okay. And you should just deal with it, right? He said, well, like sometimes we make mistakes and that's okay. Like it's not like their intention is to put out bad information. They're just trying to do the best that they can, right? But his intentions were, well, I think that, yes, I think that in his mind, what he was doing was the correct thing to do. Yes. I mean, come on. You're acting like Linus is sitting over there like, for some bizarre reason, I have decided that I don't like this particular company that's trying to start up. So I'm going to make sure that I destroy them while it's still in the bud. And just absolutely trash them in this video so that they will never have any success. That's, you know, because he just one day decided he's got a grudge against them. Like, this is silly, right? Obviously, that would be kind of a straw man. But you know that that's not what he's thinking in his head, right? What he's thinking in his head is, you know, this isn't really a very good product, and I don't think that this is a very strong business. He's right. To be frank, he's right. That even if Linus had never made that video, that company wasn't going to last very long. Just to be frank. Right? Like, you guys are acting like you know, this company would have done really well if not for this one video that Linus Tech Tips made. That's nonsense. Like, Linus is ultimately right about the main conclusion that it's not really a very good product for most people, and that business is probably not going to do very well, and that they should probably adjust some things if they want to have any chance of success. Of course, this might help them out, so, like, who knows? I don't know about the part he only fixed it after backlash. I don't think we have enough information to say that. So here's the thing is Gamers Nexus put out a hit piece without asking Linus Tech Tips for a response, right? So the normal journalist and I wouldn't even say ethics, but like what is the word? You know, like it's generally considered to be a courtesy to give the person that you're doing an expose on the opportunity to respond, right? And Linus, when he responded to it, he said, well, they didn't check with us and we would have given some information to them that would have changed some things in the video. Probably true. So now, was the whole thing that they were going to pay them back? Was that true before the video came out? We don't know that. I think you're all making a big assumption that there was no agreement to pay them back before that happened. I mean, it seems like a sensible assumption because, you know, the way that things go, it always ends up being worse and worse and worse, right? But I think that they do that, though, right? Like, they're working with, in all of these instances that you're talking about, they've been working with the manufacturer. Like, that's how they even have the stuff. So the manufacturer knows that they're going to make a video and they have the opportunity to talk. And yes, sometimes they even do, oh, you know, we saw this weird information and ask them about it. That happens all, yes, it does. It happens all the time, Lucas. What are you talking about? I don't know. I'm still at, I feel like you just want to be mad at the railroad. This thing is nuts. This is nuts. That one was new high on not very much volume, but the way that it just go whoop. But that's not true. That's not true at all, Lucas. How do they have the hardware to begin with if they aren't working with the manufacturer? Right? Like that's the way that this works is you talk to them, you make an agreement on the, what you're going to do. So they say they give you the piece of hardware, and then, you have a certain amount of time to look at it. And if you have some questions, you can ask them some questions. But then, like, there's this agreement that, like, okay, but you don't get to control what I'm going to put in the video, right? So, you ask the questions, but then at the end of the day, they get to see what they put in the video when the video comes out and everybody else does, right? But they're if Linus Tech Tips has a question about the hardware or something like that doesn't make sense, then they talk to the manufacturer about it. They're like talking back and forth like the whole time that the video is made. Now, there may be some situations where it's like they found something and they don't necessarily they do want it to be a surprise. I guess that does happen, right? But the point was to say, like, is Linus being hypocritical by putting out a video that is, disparages a product? Well, like, that's the way that the whole agreement is made, right? The agreement is, yes, we're working together, making a video, you giving me the hardware, but at the end of the day, you don't control what I say, and you will find out what's in the video when everybody else does. And that's the agreement that they make with and they totally go into that agreement. That's totally different from a completely different YouTube channel just out of the blue deciding to do an expose. Right? Especially when you're making, like, personal accusations of malfeasance, essentially, right? And you don't give them the opportunity to respond to it. Well, okay. That's true. Linus is famous for not following the instructions. Sometimes he does do that. That's true. But the people that are working with him, that send him hardware, know that. Come on. So let me tell you something, okay? Here's why I say you just want to be mad at the railroad. Like, this is the kind of argument, the type of argument tactics that you will see when that's what's really going on. Do you notice how this conversation just keeps branching further and further out? Right? Like, think about how far we've come from, like, what the core accusation was and whether or not it's a big deal. Because my whole point was, yes, it's true, but it's not a big deal, right? We're not having that conversation anymore, right? If I come out and I say something like, well, okay, but, it's not an unsolicited thing, right? The company sent them the hardware. The company wanted to be reviewed by the company. And that's part of the risk with working with them, is that maybe the product isn't very good and the review ends up being bad, And that's kind of a risk that you accept as a business, as opposed to somebody making an expose about your channel that's completely unsolicited and they don't ask you for any information about it, right? That's a completely different situation. So when I said that, you branched out the conversation again and said, well, yeah, but Linus doesn't always follow the manual instructions. Okay, but that's still not really relevant to the, you're just kind of changing the subject again, right? I'm just keeping you from trading that ugly ass micro UST. Is this not scary? Well, I think we know what's going on, right? The Bank of Japan came into this almost surely. And I can remember, wasn't it last time that the Bank of Japan did this that I got screwed over? I'm glad that I'm not in this. I mean, I feel like I'm missing out on some big trades, but this one in particular, I feel is too dangerous for me. I think that you could trade it. I think that somebody could, because we identified what was happening early enough to get in line with the trend, but it's just like the pullbacks and stuff are a little scary too. That's kind of the thing. Okay, the whole argument is that they are rushing, and industry highest benchmarks are not that high. Wait, what do you mean by that second part? So I'll try and rephrase it for you. Full of errors. The argument is that their benchmarks are not the best quality benchmarks in the industry, right? That's the argument, right? Or at least that's your argument, right? Okay. So I understand that. You're totally right. At the moment, their work is not the best in the industry. I do not believe that is the argument. To be frank with you, that is not the actual argument. Okay. So if their benchmarks are like not the best in the industry, you don't go and say, well, I don't enjoy watching this channel anymore. I'm going to unsubscribe now because of this video. Right? Because if it was really about the data, you would have seen the problems in the data when they posted and like stopped watching the channel like months ago, right? So that's not what people care about, right? The issue is that people feel that Linus Tech Tips has done something immoral. That's like, seriously. They think that he is running an immoral business is what they think. And he does that by cutting corners, not paying his employees very much, and strong-arming manufacturers and bullying manufacturers is basically what the accusation is, right? Oh, okay. But I don't really feel like so again, hold on. No, can we come back to that one, because again, you're changing the subject. Don't change the subject. How can you be the best? They're not the best, not right now. I'm not going to die on the hill. I'm trying to teach some like a couple, 2 or 3 things here. Do you see where they are? So let me back up for a second. It is immoral to say that you have the best self-imposed benchmarks, but in reality, you make mistakes. No, everybody thinks that what their work is the best, okay? And maybe they're wrong, okay? And the whole thing for Linus Tech Tips is what if you talk to them, if he was here right now and we were having this conversation, here's what I bet he would say. He would say, well, you're right. Like at that time, we did not have the best benchmarks because we made mistakes. But that's because we're still kind of ramping up this side of the business. But a year from now, they will have the best. If they continue to build out their testing lab, they will without question have the best benchmarks. They're going to be able to provide you information about this hardware that you like never got before, right? They will be in the future. But I don't think it's immoral to think that you have the best, because everybody thinks that. Come on. Like, nobody sits there and says, oh yeah, my YouTube channel is shit, you should just go and watch this other guy. Nobody does that. It's true. Well, I know how that's not how business works, but you are not approaching this from the perspective of a business, right? You're just a viewer. You don't have any financial stake in this, right? Why are you acting like you guys do have a financial stake in it? You know, that's where I'm like, But they do have a lab. If they had shares, I probably would buy them. Although I don't know about if I'd want to buy them right now. Because it is a growing business. Like that's the thing. They're the lab that they're building. I think it's super cool. I really hope that this whole thing doesn't hamper their efforts. I don't think it will. But it would be unfortunate if it hampered their efforts to completely finish building out their lab. Who cares? Well, yes, it is. Okay. Kulud, we already said you're right about that one thing. That what they're doing right now, that with the information that was released now or at that time, that Gamers Nexus video was better than Linus Tech Tips. That's true. Okay. I don't really think that that's what's important. And I don't really think that that's why people are doing this, right? I don't think it's deceiving to say that we think we have the best, that we think we have good testing. Like, I don't, to be proud in your product and to think, well, yeah, we made mistakes, but we're going to do better in the future. And we're past that. Like, that's what everybody's going to believe about themselves. I would be concerned if they didn't think that about themselves, right? Who comes out and says that, right? I feel like that your like standard of like what they have to do to atone is a little silly. Nobody's gonna do that. You think Gamers Nexus is gonna come out and say, yes, we should have asked them for comment first before putting that video out? They might. I don't think that they're gonna say that. And a year from now, when Linus Tech Tips does have a well built out test center and they've worked out all of their kinks and they have the most amazing consumer testing, technical testing lab ever built, do you think that then Gamers Nexus is going to be like, well, yeah, Linus Tech Tips does have better testing than us now? You think they're going to say that? Of course not. They're going to continue to believe that they have a superior, and they're just going to focus on the things that they think they do better, right? I don't think it's deceiving when you acknowledge your business model is to prioritize views and deadlines. I mean, it's fucking YouTube, dude. Okay, can you not, like... I think that the assumption should be that that's what they're trying to do unless they say otherwise, right? Kind of trying to keep an eye on the dollar here, because the dollar has pulled back a considerable amount, but the treasuries are still going. So it kind of looks to me like the stops have been triggered in the treasuries and they're just not going to stop. Okay, but let's go back. Okay, so the question is, why is it deserving of you unsubscribing? Right, that's question. Like, I'm just trying to take it from like the easiest, like most mild form of this, right? Okay, so their testing wasn't as accurate. You say that you're going to unsubscribe. Why are you going to unsubscribe? Is it because you thought that that Linus Tech Tips was about having really good high quality data on testing and benchmarks, and the whole reason that you were watching the channel was for that? I mean, come on. That's not why anybody's watching that channel. They're watching that channel because they do entertaining things like, you know, do crazy water cooling on a machine, or do whatever kind of crazy thing they can possibly come up with, right? And they're entertaining. So from my perspective, as long as the videos continue to be entertaining, I'm going to continue watching it, right? Because I'm not going there for the benchmarks. And I do like their reviews, like their higher level kind of stuff on their reviews. And I think that those are still good and aren't in question here. But if I know that Linus Tech Tips incentives are on entertainment instead of accurate information, then they are of no use to me. But okay, this is where it comes back to the inaccuracies that you're talking about are trivial. Like, you're acting like they came out and they said that the GeForce 4060 is like the best value proposition that's ever been placed out in graphics. And then actually they went back and they did the testing and they found out, oh, it's kind of shit. Like, that's not what happened, right? What happened was, like, they had some test results that were seemed a little weird. And then they found out, you know, oh, well, the reason it didn't match out was because this one was a 4 megabyte cache and this one was a 3 megabyte cache. Like, you're talking about things that, unless you're like really understand computer tech, like you're a real hardware nerd, you're not going to know or care about. Right? They're inaccuracies that were completely irrelevant to 99% of people. Oh, Michael. I don't know how I feel about Michael Burry's things that, you know, it always seems like they're saying that he's short, and then I don't think that what the information that we get from those reports are really give us a really good picture of what he actually is trying to do. But we'll see what happens. There is likely to be a little bit of weakness here before the end of the year. Right? So if a new laptop comes out and they do a review on that, well, actually they don't do reviews on laptops, right? Because they have this other laptop that they like, right? They made the mistake. That's true. How do you even make a mistake like that in that level? Oh, guys, like, you don't, man. Here's what you guys need to do is you need to try and run a YouTube channel and try and make reviews on mice and products like that, and do that for 5 years, and then tell me how many mistakes you came back and made. Right? Like, you say, how do you even make a mistake at that level? I would say that being at that level just makes it more likely that you will find a mistake, because the amount of content that they're producing out there is so insane. Like, they're making so many videos now. Like, they have, like, what, 5 channels? Right? Yeah, they're going to make mistakes. Do you not understand? Like, you're saying that because they have scaled up to a large business, that there should be less mistakes, and I'm saying that if you like, the number of mistakes that you're going to get is going to be higher because of the amount of content that you're making. Even though, and the whole thing is that even though the percentage of like mistakes per content, or let's say mistakes per minute of content, that percentage is probably lower for them than it would be for you, but there's going to be more mistakes for them overall, and so there's going to be more things for you to point to to say that they've made mistakes. Do you see how that works? And this is why I'm saying that, like, part of the thing here is that you're all holding Gamers Nexus blameless. But my argument is that Gamers Nexus has already made 2 mistakes. Number one, they made a mistake by overreacting to that offhand comment in that one video. And then number 2, they made a mistake by making basically a blood feud video. And then third mistake is that they didn't ask Linus Tech Tips for a comment before the video went out. Okay, so I bet you that Gamers Nexus will continue to make mistakes, and that we'll be sitting back here in a month and be talking about the mistake that Gamers Nexus made. So again, I said the mistake that they made was they overreacted to the video. They did. Okay, like they took it super personally. Like it was an offhand comment by a low-level employee in one video, and they made this huge deal out of it. So that's the first thing, is they really overreacted to that first video. That's the first mistake. And the second mistake was that the video that they made is like a blood feud video. You're saying that they're just pointing out that they're inaccurate. That's autistic. Okay, you don't how can you not say, when you look at the context and everything else about that video is basically well, now I'm going to go after Linus Tech Tips and point out all of the bad things that they've done because they made an offhand comment that I didn't like. It's a blood feud video, guys. It is. How did that comment end up in that video that was published by Linus Tech Tips? I think it was perfectly okay for them to say that. Remember, what was it that they said? Well, the reason why our testing is so good is because we do new tests that nobody's done before. It's true. That is like their edge. It was what's supposed to be their edge. It's perfectly like that's the whole thing. Is you see one way that you could take it is that, when people brought that up, you could be like, well, there's things that Linus Tech Tips does well, and there's things that we do well, and just leave it at that. But they didn't. They took it personally, right? Yeah, they're having beef. They get marketing money, so if you talk BS, you call them out. It's not a blood feud. I think that we're probably projecting our own thoughts and intentions onto these people, right? I don't know what how Gamers Nexus. I have a theory on how Gamers Nexus thinks and what's going through his head when making this video, but it may not be true. Maybe he's just doing it because he knows that it's going to make his channel more popular, that he's going to use the drama to make the channel more popular, right? Could be true. That doesn't seem to me like that's how he works. It seems to me like he's genuinely incensed by this, that he's been sitting here this whole time like, oh man, why is Linus Tech Tips doing so well when the quality of our videos is, the information that we provide is so much better? It's just because they do all of the stupid, it's the same arguments that we'll make here all the time, right? It's, well, you go and you do the, whatever it takes to get up in the YouTube algorithm, and I'm not willing to do those things. It's okay to do that, but you can't, if you're not willing to do those things, you can't say that I should be the one that's popping off, right? And so he saw the opportunity to come in and tell everybody that. So I think it's personal. I think that Gamers Nexus is taking it personal. And like, here's the thing, is if it wasn't personal, it is now. Because there's no way that Linus Tech Tips can continue without this having affected everything. So now this one little feud is like everything. So you don't think that when Gamers Nexus screws up that they're not going to come and call it out the other way? Or if they have dirt on Gamers Nexus that they're not going to put it out now? Oh, I hope that Gamers Nexus doesn't have any dirt, because you know people are digging right now. Come on. You know that people are probably digging right now. Wouldn't surprise me in the least bit if Linus is over there in Vancouver or wherever it is that they live, having a meeting right now at this very moment saying, okay, we need to dig up dirt on Gamers Nexus now. What do you got? You got any leads? Having a small team that's like the opposition research team now going out. Like, wouldn't surprise me in the least bit. Because you're literally talking about, like, the survival of your business now at this point. Yeah. You don't think that it's not going to turn into a blood feud? It's a blood. I'm telling you, for Linus, it's personal now. 100%. There's no way that I would let somebody talk about, my business like that if I felt that there was, that they were being unfair. Well, unless, I just ignore it, then of course I just ignore it. But and that's my point, as I'm not saying that they didn't make the mistake, but I'm saying the online mob is trying to cancel Linus, and I think that's wrong. I do not believe that Linus Tech Tips as a business should be destroyed over this. That's my first, but that's why I tried to pull it back and just say, okay, you unsubscribe. Why do you think that you should unsubscribe? Was it because you thought that the channel was all about getting like the best detailed quality information about new hardware? Or was it because you found the channel entertaining and you liked the stuff about the hardware that they did make? Well, okay. If that's why, then unsubscribe, I guess. But I don't think that's why most people are watching that channel, right? So then we say, okay, maybe you unsubscribe, but that doesn't mean that everybody should unsubscribe or whatever. It depends on what they want from the channel, right? So then we got to take it a step further and we say, okay, but should Linus Tech Tips business be destroyed over it? And I say no. I think they made some mistakes, sure, but I don't think that like something's going on that means that like Linus Tech Tips should be canceled, right? And that's the thing, is I think some of these people are expecting his business to like just like be destroyed and go away. It's not going to work out that way, right? They're going to have this drama. It actually probably makes his channel, both channels, even more successful, and then everybody forgets about it. And then a year from now, the lab fixes his problems, and then they really do have the best information. And it will be presented on a website where you can just go through it, instead of a video format. It'd be even better. That's what's going to happen, I'm telling you. Right? So that's my first point, was that it's not worth the business going under. That was my first thing, is it's not as big of a deal as people are making it out to be, right? So then point number 2 of mine is, why are people making it out to be such a big deal if it's not worth really what is the word? If it's not a transgression worthy of Linus Tech Tips going out of business, okay, then why are people treating it as such a big deal? Because people want to be mad at the railroad. They like the drama. You like the drama. We all like the drama. It's engaging. And when you get stuck in that thing, what people do is they're constantly trying to one-up each other about how mad they are about it. Right? And then point number 3 that I was trying to make was, so how can you know that that's what's happening? And I would say, well, it's because when you start to bring up points, you'll notice that the argument bifurcates again. Right? You're not going to actually address my actual argument, right? Because what I haven't seen here is that's my threefold argument, right? So we have to go back to the beginning of the argument, which is this worthy of Linus Tech Tips going out of business? None of you guys addressed that. Because number one is you're saying that what he's doing is immoral. I disagree, but you really think that it's worthy of them going out of business, and then why? Right? At what point is it like they should go out of business? You know, like I can look at Activision Blizzard and what Bobby Kotick has done to Activision Blizzard, where the decisions and the actions that he has made has just completely destroyed an entire industry, right? The games are shit now because of the business model that Activision Blizzard spread throughout the industry. And on top of that, they treat their employees like absolute crap. All of the best people from Activision Blizzard left, and so now that's like not even a real studio anymore. Yes, absolutely. I would love to see Bobby Kotick go away for that reason. Okay? But because Linus Tech Tips made a few mistakes in some of their benchmarking results, the channel should go defunct? Like what? What? You don't see that as like a little bit of an overreaction? Like, I think Linus is too big to probably. The way that I've seen these sorts of things go, what's going to happen is all of the nerds are going to get really super upset for like a month, and then they'll forget about it, and the channel will continue to go on and they probably won't make as much money as they were, or they might not grow as fast as they were, but they'll be okay, and probably in a year, their lab will probably be better than ever. And on the split side, I'm a little bit weary about, you know, everybody trying to hook their wagon to Gamers Nexus, because that kind of, I'm seeing some things from him that is like, I would not want to be, you know, like if I was a mover and shaker in that business, you know, and I was sitting there like, okay, so here's this situation going on. Maybe I should comment about it, or maybe I should make a video about it. And I make a video, I'm not going to make a video where like I'm like, oh, Gamers Nexus is the greatest, and I'm totally hitching my wagon to Gamers Nexus. I would be super, super cautious to not associate myself with Gamers Nexus, because I would be afraid of the risk that might, you know, I would be afraid of risks, essentially, because I'm seeing behavior from him that says that they have some vulnerabilities. Right. And so that's point number 4. And that's the one that's probably actually relevant to us. And that's what I was trying to get across. Trying to get to. I know I'd like take too long. And then you want to bring up all of these points in between. And so sometimes we don't get there. But that was the point that I was trying to make, right? Don't stow thrones in glass houses. They always say don't throw stones at glass houses, right? Isn't that the phrase? You know, don't go or don't throw stones from glass houses, right? But what I'm saying is, like, you don't want to build your house out of glass in the first place. And I kind of feel like that's what they're doing. Does that make sense? And so when you're watching it here in the market, these are one of those things that you do kind of have to watch, because we kind of saw that play out today, didn't we? There's been these guys out there that have been short in the treasuries, kind of taking some victory laps. We had a perfect opportunity for them to like really push it. And then what happened? Bank of Japan came in and just plowed over everybody and created one of the most insane uptrends I think I've ever seen. This is really one of the most insane uptrends I think I've ever seen. Too volatile for me to trade. Right? And how does that happen? Because all of these shorts thought they were invincible. And this is right when they think that they're invincible that the Bank of Japan comes in and is like, oh, actually, there's a bigger fish and we can make the market move up regardless of what that number just was. So don't get, be careful of the hubris. That's the issue that I have with the Gamers Nexus video over here is I'm kind of getting a little bit of a hint of hubris. Like, we're the best and now we're going to, you know, attack and take down this other channel and nitpick on every mistake that they've ever made. Okay, like if you're going to play that game, you realize that everybody's going to turn around and now try and do that to you. Hope that your house isn't made out of glass. Right? You didn't know that the Bank of Japan had this power? It's not the first time we've seen him do it either. Like the thing that's crazy about this whole situation was that they've done it enough times before, and I know enough about how they would carry out such a thing that I knew it was a possibility in that situation, but I just didn't come to the conclusion that that's what was really going on until it was much too late for me to really trade on it, right? Like, if I had caught in some area below the open at 21, then I probably would have been okay, I think. Shall we try and game it out now? Kind of interested. Yeah. So I think in order for me to have felt comfortable with this, I would have needed to get in somewhere below 25. And I didn't really start to be like, something's definitely up until they broke like 22. So I guess there was a little bit of a window there where I could have gotten in safely. But then I don't know if I would have sat through this drawdown right here. This one that happened kind of around the S&P 500 open. And then like this further push up, that is just wild. You know, this is, you know, at this point I was saying maybe it's the Bank of Japan. At this point, I'm like, it's definitely the Bank of Japan, because that's just like really unusual behavior, right? Especially when, you know, we just had a pretty major piece of macroeconomic news and the market moved opposite direction of what it should based on the fundamental news that came out. So it's 100%. It almost certainly has to be that the Bank of Japan got involved. So, I don't know. You guys didn't have any other comments on the Linus thing, so I guess we'll move on. Let's see on Zero Hedge if they have any story suggesting that. Fitch warns on big banks face downgrades. I saw that earlier. Empire State Survey screams stagflation. New orders plunge. Precise paid surge. We could say that Empire State Survey could also be a factor as well, right? But that was the thing, is in the beginning I kind of thought maybe that was the thing, and so I don't know where they go, and I wasn't sure, you know. Now that I know that it's the Bank of Japan, now it could have been like, yeah, it could have been long anywhere. In fact, I dare say if it comes back to 110, I could maybe try taking it, although it'd be super risky. No, I do not really see anything on Zero Hedge about it, so I don't know. Oh, what's this? Somebody left a more recent comment. Okay, large transactions can influence prices briefly, but they alone don't determine overall market efficiency. Actually, they do. Okay, this guy is actually like, I'm really glad that he's making this comment, because this provides us an opportunity to talk about something that I've, kind of to address a common misconception about markets that we've basically proven is not true. Market efficiency primarily concerns the speed and accuracy with which prices adapt to all available information, not solely based on individual transactions. This concept of efficiency is intricate, influenced by a diverse array of factors, including the rapidity of information. The notion that significant transactions sold considerable sway doesn't necessarily signify the market's statistical efficiency. Yes, it does. So even in efficient markets, price fluctuations can occur due to the introduction of new information and other underlying factors. The pivotal trait of market efficiency is a swift and precise adjustment of prices in response to the emergence of new information. Okay, but he's not understanding the difference between statistical and informational inefficiency. Does. What you describe is the more traditional view on market efficiency, but the whole thing here is that this research proves that view wrong. Orders do not just have temporary impact. No, I shouldn't say that way. When orders have impact, those impacts tend to be permanent. That is, price will settle after the trades and stay at that price unless an opposing order pushes the price back. No, I shouldn't say it that way. I should say orders have strong impact. Orders have strong impact, and the market so while traditional theory would say move us up, eventually the market moves us up. There should be other orders to bring us back to fundamental value pretty quickly. But that's just not what happens. At all. Oh, it's almost time for us to get going, huh? I don't know if I gave the best explanation there, but like people have this idea that, okay, here's a price. Somebody comes in and buys it. Okay, the price will go up. But then the market makers, they know what the real price is, and they will trade it back to that original price, right? That's what the fundamental, that the efficient market says. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen that way. The large meta orders have a permanent impact. Like here in this situation, Bank of Japan has come in and intervened in this market, essentially, right? So they push it up. So had they not been around here, I bet you the interest rates would be higher. The interest rates would be closer to 4.2%, right? How long would, so now that the Bank of Japan is done, perhaps, shouldn't we go back down to that price? Well, no, because the impact is permanent. So you're not going to move back down until you have the orders to do it. And, you know, who's as big as the Bank of Japan? Nobody. Well, I mean, other countries, but who's that big that would be willing to come in and intervene in this market, right? And so the reality is that the fundamental price that we should be at, which, you know, is more like 4.2%, we might not see that again for weeks, potentially. The market's not informationally efficient. You have to predict the orders to understand why the price is right now. You have to understand the flows that led to it to get that way, because the fundamental picture is not the only reason that prices move, essentially. So I'm trying to think about, is there anything that we need to cover before we get going here in a minute? And I think the first thing is that I do believe that the Bank of Japan intervened in this situation. I don't have any news or reports of that yet, but I feel pretty confident that that's what happened. But it also seems to me that they must have triggered some stops. So if they triggered some stops and some of these guys have to like unwind positions, could this continue going? It seems to me that this is a situation where it probably could continue going into a trend day, but I'm not willing to stick my neck out on it in this one. Last time around, I said it's probably going to be a trend day. This one, it's unsure. Bank of Japan has some strategies that we don't know. Well, it seems like we were able to predict what they were going to do this time pretty well. I don't know. So in this situation, we knew that it was one of the the possible list of factors, right? We just weren't sure enough about the flows when it happened to really pin it on that until it was probably too late. But we were able to identify before time that the Bank of Japan could potentially get involved at 145. So just know, like I would have it on your charts. Just my recommendation, have a chart of the 6J open with an inverse indicator on it that you get from my free indicator pack. And when that Japanese yen, that the USD JPY is at 145, be careful. But overall, that was some pretty crazy volatility that I'm happy I avoided. So I could have taken a bad loss in there. I was looking short. I was looking short. And when I'm looking short, it's really hard to get me to flip around and go long, right? So I'm just glad that I didn't take a short. No, why would I trade NQ? Why would I trade S&P for that matter, right? So you got to ask yourself, why are you actually trading the instrument? Is there something about the instrument that gives you an edge over the market? Because if not, then I feel like you might be trading it for the wrong reasons. I got to get going though, guys. So I will see you tomorrow and we can argue about this more. We didn't even get into the Trump thing, man. That's getting crazy to me. That is getting crazy. Yep, they defend it until they can't anymore, for sure. There's going to be at some point where like where the traders get the upper hand on the Japanese yen, perhaps, and it could be ugly, yeah. When that starts to become a dominant factor in the markets, it gets pretty dicey for us, right? Because that means you could have like absolutely insane moves and, you know, you don't know when they're going to pop out. I guess in this situation we kind of did, but going on from here, you know, it's going to be a little bit more dicey. So like overall today makes me much more weary about placing trades overall until after Labor Day. Because you have this illiquid markets and then you have like central banks coming in and doing intervention in them. That's a really dangerous situation for retail traders, right? But really, I gotta go, so I will see you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, stay excellent, team.